everybody, and welcome to Crushing Comics. I'm your host, Peter, and I am joined here for another episode of Shelve, Store, or Sell by my good friend, Zach, who is located over 9,000 miles away from me. Zach, welcome back to Crushing Comics.
Hello, great to be back here.
And we are just going to pick up right where we left off, which is in the middle of this mid-2000s Hulk run. So you all know the premise of the show by this point. We're trying to get Zach to tell me if I should shelve or store these, because I've not read any of these comics. We're probably not going to sell them because I do want a continuous run of Hulk. So far, we're about through half the box. We got through all of Bruce Jones' Hulk, and Zach has not recommended that I put any of them on the shelf yet. That's where we left our heroes.
That's right. We've got that entire period of Hulk back in the box right now.
So we will start here with House of M, and this is Peter David Still, who we had just ended with coming back to Hulk. And you know that I don't really care too much about alternate reality stuff. So my big question about this is, does anything about this impact Hulk when we come back from House of M? Because a lot of characters changed in House of M.
Not even remotely. And by then, David knew that his run wasn't going to be extended. That wasn't clear when he first started. It may have been a longer ongoing run. It did not exactly catch fire with fans. So by then, he's just, even by the standards of House of M, he's really just running out the clock. And nobody is really going to pick up on this after he leaves the title.
You know, so many people covet those House of M hardcovers because Marvel pretty much collected every single House of M thing in a series of oversized hardcovers that matched the main event collection. But even putting aside my general boredom with alternate reality stuff, I don't think there's that much great House of M material. I think the Spider-Man books were good. I think the Wolverine story was good. And I don't know how much of it really feels essential to me other than House of M itself.
I mean, it actually has really important ramifications for Carol Danvers, then Ms. Marvel, who did not have an ongoing at the time. She got an ongoing eventually out of the crossover. But yeah, at the time, hardly anybody else actually does anything that the character could play with later on, which is really too bad, because that's the way to do those alternate reality stories. If you're going to have them shunted off to an alternate reality for however many months, let something happen that they can take with them afterwards that allows you to build stories.
But did not happen for Hulk.
Did not happen for Hulk. So it's really just a standalone thing that does not matter very much for the ongoing Hulk story.
So now the next one is that it's kind of strikes me as this like weird lost chapter, to me anyway, from like a guide making standpoint. So it's called Planet Hulk Prelude. And I think in the Planet Hulk Omnibus, this is actually collected.
Those are there. Those are there because when they call it a prelude, that's literally the truth. These are the issues that actually set up directly the storyline Planet Hulk that's going to immediately follow after it.
But I never knew that this was written by Daniel Way and Straczynski, because to me, Planet Hulk is a pack jam. And it had never occurred to me that the prelude issues were by somebody other than Pack.
Yeah, so Planet Hulk and the issues that precede it, it's associated with Greg Pak, and Pak wrote the story.
Yeah.
But he didn't come up with the story. The story is actually editorial. I think it actually started with Joe Quesada himself. Certainly it started at one of those Marvel Creative Retreat summits. But Hulk didn't have a writer at the time. So this was really just everybody getting together and sort of collectively at Marvel coming up with a story for the Hulk. So they knew the beats that the plot had to get through, and then they just sort of assigned writers who were available to do the stories to get him there. And given that that's the circumstance that led to it, it ended up far better than it had any right to. The issues in that Prelude collection are not particularly good. They really are just going through the motions. But they're not awful either. And the story is enough of an interesting premise that I feel like it's probably worth reading for people who are interested in the Hulk.
And the art is really good.
It's rock solid art. I don't even remember who does the art in those issues, but it's good.
It's a number of kind of workman people who are not big names for me. It's Mike McKone on the Fantastic Four issues, who's huge.
Sure, he was doing a regular Fantastic Four run at that time with Straczynski.
Right, but then the Hulk issues, Q Cha and Juan Santa Cruz are not artists that I immediately have name recognition for, but it's really, I mean, it's lovely. So does this, I always thought Planet Hulk was like kind of an Illuminati story, because the Illuminati are like, we got to do something about this Hulk, and Bendis is Illuminati. But you're saying that this sets up the thing that they decide that they have to do something about. Am I right?
The Fantastic Four issues set up the circumstance that prompts them to have to do the thing to get the Hulk off the planet.
Okay.
Illuminati, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I think I am, was actually a little bit of a retcon a little bit later, where we find out somewhere down the road that the Illuminati had actually gotten together and plotted to do this.
Because that was closer to World War Hulk when he gets angry about it, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when it happens in those issues, this is one of those strange continuity flubs that happens sometimes when Marvel's scheduling gets way off. The person who's actually responsible for sending Hulk into space is Nick Fury, who was not supposed to be running S.H.I.E.L.D. or even have his whereabouts known at the time. He was supposed to be completely off the table. But because the Secret War miniseries was so delayed and took so long to publish, the people writing those Hulk comics did not know that Nick Fury couldn't be responsible for this. So Bendis had to sort of walk it back later.
I never realized
going on behind the scenes.
So Secret War, so for people who don't know, Secret War, which is on my oversize shelf, so we won't see it in this series, I always think about it as like a gap fill between Avengers Disassembled and the beginning of Bendis Avengers. And it's Bendis just playing its with this whole, like, can heroes also be used as agents, and what happens when you get into the stuff of a sovereign country, in this case Latveria, which we don't need to go into here, but the upshot is it's very Nick Fury driven. And so and it ends with a very different status quo for Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. And so it's just interesting that this is happening like simultaneously, publishing wise, with Bendis and Gabriel Delato, I think, like dragging their feet to get the 5 or 6 issues of Secret War out.
Yeah, because that was supposed to come out as a prelude to Bendis' whole Avengers run. It just did not happen that way.
It still reads fine in terms of reading it that way for Avengers, but it makes sense to me why it would mess this up.
Right. So that's the circumstance behind the Hulk getting shot off into space in those issues.
But you don't have to read this to appreciate Planet Hulk, do you? Like, can you just...
You don't, because Planet Hulk just sort of has a cold open of the Hulk has been shot in a rocket into space now. You don't really need to know the entire background. If you're interested in seeing the Hulk as an ongoing saga for the character, this is fun because it ties him into the Marvel universe, and you can see why he's gone during the next big Marvel event, which is going to be Civil War, and you can see why he's so angry when he comes back during the Marvel event afterwards, which is World War Hulk. But no, Planet Hulk as a story can be extremely standalone.
So, and again, this is collected in the Planet Hulk Omnibus. So you will get to start here if you buy the Omnibus, which is the newest version of a collection of Planet Hulk. But then we have...
Just recently out of print. So if you're going to get that Omnibus, you may have just missed your window. But it is in the Omnibus.
But then there was originally an oversized hardcover and a paperback version of Planet Hulk just itself, which is 92 to 105, and then a few other things. So Pack takes over. I think he's the sole writer of this run, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And this is one of those times we were talking about last episode. Yeah, he wrote everything in this book with some great artists, Aaron Lopresti and Carlo Pagulin. And some Gary Frank. This is one of those times, like we were talking about last episode, where you just take Hulk and you put him in a totally different situation, and he totally works. I mean, this is like Hulk as John Carter of Mars.
Yes, that's exactly it. This is an extended John Carter pastiche, and it's actually a lot of fun.
I think it's probably one of the, I clearly haven't read a lot of Hulk, but just based on fan sentiment and like reactions, it seems like it's one of the 3 or 4 biggest, most popular Hulk stories of all time, along with probably like Peter David Hulk and like the current Hulk series. I don't know any that are talked about with the volume of fervor as Planet Hulk.
And it's the only one that's really a standalone story in and of itself. That for both Peter David and the current Al Ewing series, Immortal Hulk, you really have to appreciate it in terms of an entire run over the course of years. This is really, you just take those chunk of issues and that's a story right there. You don't need anything before or after it.
Right, and both Peter David and the current Al Ewing run play a lot with like what you know about Hulk and who Hulk has been and why he should have different identities. Whereas this story is much more like it's the Hulk that you recognize from almost any form of media, except for he's like a little bit smarter than the dumb Hulk, because he stays as Hulk almost this whole story.
Like Hulk smash Hulk, but it's more or less your standard issue bruiser.
And then the other thing is that I think that a lot of people, when they see Thor Ragnarok, the movie, they're like, oh, that's got hints of Planet Hulk in it. But really, I mean, I haven't read this in quite some time, and not every issue either. But it almost feels like that could be like the sequel to this. Like, that's almost like a status quo you could find him in on his way out of this, on the way back to Earth, because he does like fight in a gladiatorial arena and stuff here, but this has this whole like revolution, free the people subplot, which like doesn't really play quite as much in Ragnarok.
No, I mean, Ragnarok is really the sort of like parody comedy version of Planet Hulk. It's taking
it's
the
a parody of it.
It's riffing on some of the ideas, but it's deliberately subverting them all into outright comedy in a way that Planet Hulk very much is not. Planet Hulk is straight up John Carter sci-fi space opera pastiche.
Right, and to me, this is a shelf. Like, Pack, who I revere, it's one of the best Hulk stories of all time. Like, if there's going to be any Hulk on the shelf, I feel like this should probably be the book.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would say put that one on the shelf.
Yeah, and also...
And I'm not, I have one reservation about it, which is that it is early Greg Pak. I love Greg Pak. I think
that's fair.
He's an incredibly underrated writer, but he was just getting started, and so there is something a little bit formulaic just about the structure of each of those issues, where you can almost figure out what page he's going to have a big like twist splash page on. So it's like he's finding his footing, and he has these security blankets in terms of his structure and his formula that he hasn't moved past yet, but he's still very much Greg Pak. And in terms of the writing and the characterization and the depth of the story, he's there already.
Cool. So I'm going to shelf that one. And I would say to anybody who either wants to read a Hulk comic or who likes that kind of like Stranger in a Strange Land, John Carter of Mars, which by the way is just like a human who winds up on Mars. If anybody who likes that kind of pulp comic, this is your Hulk comic.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Now, after that comes World War Hulk, where he comes, as we've mentioned, he comes back to Earth and he's mad. And I've already put that on the shelf because it's part of my whole like undersized Marvel events, undersized trade paperback. And I think I'm just going to actually put this right next to it because to me, World War Hulk is not fun unless you have read Planet Hulk, because that's the whole point. Now, there are World War Hulk tie-ins. None of them, in my mind, are remarkable. They are all going back.
I'm going to advise that best practices for Marvel reading say that this is a crossover where you just pretend it's not a crossover. The only thing that exists are the Hulk issues. It's very solid and entertaining if you just read those Hulk issues. In terms of crossovers, I think Christos Gage does an World War Hulk X-Men of all things.
That is good. It's actually really good.
That is good. That is the only crossover title that I think I'd actually recommend to anybody.
Yeah, and that one is good, by the way, because Christos Gage has a specific facility with younger characters. His Avengers Arena is fantastic. Or not Arena, please don't get angry, although I like that. His Avengers Academy is fantastic. And he writes, it's basically a young X-Men insert to give them something to do other than be decimated by the ongoing horrific but great Kyle and Yost run, right? Okay, so what happens here is that shortly after Planet Hulk and World War Hulk's tie-ins in the actual Hulk title, Incredible Hercules takes over Hulk and takes over its numbering, and that's all by Greg Pak, and that's in some other H-box, probably the H-box that comes directly before this, that has the beginning of this Hulk run, I would imagine, HE, HU, it's not a lot of other Marvel H titles. But then Hulk, Bruce Banner, and then some, graduates into this next series, which is just Hulk, and it starts, I want to say,
so what we have
2008.
So what we have in that relaunched series is it starts off with a mystery, where we have the Hulk on that cover, where there is a new Hulk, and he is red. He is the Red Hulk. And we don't know for a number of issues in that series who this new Hulk is. That's a mystery that's held out from the reader. Because we learned pretty early on that it's not Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner has been...
This is like in the third or fourth issue.
After World War Hulk.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to keep that a secret here. I think maybe we should. But there's a mysterious new Hulk.
Now, I've actually read not all of this, but a lot of this. And I'm of two minds. So I'm not the hugest Jeff Loeb fan as a writer, and he is writing this whole early part of this run. On the other side, I do actually kind of really like Red Hulk, and why we can say it's an old comic book. If you don't want to know, it's 12 years old. It's Thunderbolt Ross.
It's Thunderbolt Ross.
Betty Ross's dad. Yes,
yeah.
Right? Yes.
And the Hulk's old, long-time nemesis.
Right, all the way back to the original.
Hunted him, back to the original Incredible Hulk series.
And as much as I don't always love hero proliferation, where there's like 18 versions of every hero, which is on my mind because I've been working on Green Lantern for the website right now, it just works for me. He's the anti-Hulk. He has totally different missions than Bruce Banner does as a Hulk, and motivations, and he delights in the ability to destroy things at the same level that Bruce Banner has, but he's also cunning in a way that even as smart as Bruce Banner is, he's never that cunning unless he's in like Grey Hulk mode. And it's just kind of delightful. Plus you get the introduction of Red She-Hulk, which gives Betty Ross as a character who's always been on the sidelines a chance to have like a really active voice. And it's just kind of fun. I have this one separately because
Betty, I should say, had been more than on the sidelines.
Betty dead? Is she dead?
Dead since the 90s. And this was finally paying off a plot twist in the last page after Peter David's run ended.
I did not
which
know
said that Betty was going to come back. They finally brought her back in this form. And I think we're of the same mind here. I think
it's just delightful. It's fun.
It is. As that run goes on, we do get to a point where they are proliferating into so many Hulks. Everybody in the Marvel Universe is becoming a Hulk, that at a certain point, it just becomes unwieldy for any writer to deal with. And it goes along with them essentially franchising the Hulk at that point. That they were publishing at least 2 Hulk titles every month. They were crossing over all the time. And it just, I think, started to get a little bit out of hand by the time we finally get to the end of that era.
Yeah,
but at the beginning, it's fun.
I don't have all of those Red Hulk because Hulk winds up getting his own title back, and then Red Hulk continues in this title that was just Hulk, and then eventually gets called Red Hulk, and then eventually Red She-Hulk takes over it. But you do get to this point where it's like too many cooks. Like, how many Gamma characters are there? And then it gets into that place of like, are any of them special? Are their relationships unique? I just want to say the first one I actually bought was this because it's X-Force versus Hulk as a whole arc. And the reason I have this one individually is because I actually used to shelve this with X-Force. It's one of the only times that the Kyle and Yost X-Force appears anywhere outside of X-Force and Uncanny X-Men.
Right.
And it's actually like a really, really fun story. It's much more cartoonish than your typical Kyle and Yost X-Force look because it's drawn by Ian Churchill, who I actually love from, I think, what was he on the 90s that we love? Excalibur, maybe, or X-Force, or some X book.
One of the X books during the 90s.
So,
who knows?
So one thing is, I actually messed up a little bit. That's because I have all of my oversized books at the back of this. There are 2 hardcovers here. They're clearly still in the wrapper. So there's Fall of the Hulks and World War Hulks. And this is basically Pack like riding the energy of Planet Hulk and of World War Hulk into 2 more big arcs that follow World War Hulk. And I've clearly never read them. And like, are they as good? Do they matter? Like, what is the story on these?
They're not, and it gets, and these are really crossover titles between what's then the franchised Hulk series. Hawk's issues are all quite good, but he can't stay isolated, and it's crossing over with weaker titles all the time. So it's a story that goes on too long, and it's essentially an extended fight scene. But to the extent that it's Pac coming back onto the Hulk and starting to write the Bruce Banner character again, and then bringing in this character of the Hulk's son, who has been born over the course of the Planet Hulk storyline, that stuff is actually very interesting. And he does get to carry that on a bit after those crossovers are done.
Now, and to me, I was looking at them for a second, like, why do I have these in oversized hardcover? But then when I look at the contents, and when I have the CK page up in front of me down here, which I'll link in the comments, it's just because they collect it so much more coherently than trying to do it in paperbacks, because there's all these tie-ins. Fall of the Hulk, Savage She-Hulks, World War Hulk's Hulked Out Heroes, World War Hulk, Spider-Man versus Thor. And I just remember taking one look at it and being like, as much as I don't care about this being oversized on my shelf, I'm just going to go for it because it's easier than trying to figure out where all of these things are collected and then lining them all up all.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare to try and collect that all in paperback. And those hardcovers, I think for exactly that reason, and because they're pretty old at this point, are increasingly hard to find. So I don't know how easily anybody would be able to track them down, but they certainly are the ideal way to read those stories if you want to read them.
But we're not saying we should put them on the shelf necessarily.
No, I don't think I would stick that era on the shelf. Honestly, I would have to say after World War Hulk, without the plural, put it back in the box. Keep it. Don't put it. I don't think it's shelf worthy after that.
So there's not actually a whole lot left in this box. I have this big handful of basically just the end of this Hulk run as Hulk continues, or Incredible Hulk continues alongside Hulk. They're all still by Pac. Planet Savage, Heart of the Monster, Chaos War tie-in to his other title he's writing at the time, Hercules, Dark Sun, Enigma Force, some of which are just tie-ins. Is any of this notable? I'm not throwing it away, but is any of it oh, Peter, that was a gem?
So those are all good comics, and they actually stand relatively apart from the other Hulk stuff that was going on at the same time, because this is focusing back on Bruce Banner and his relationship with himself as the Hulk and his relationship with his son.
His relationship with himself, which is what Hulk are about.
I should say his selves, plural. You can get a lot out of that. And Greg Pak does so well with these character interactions and development that he's really, he's in his element there. And they're actually all good comics. The problem is that I don't think I could recommend putting them on the shelf because they're just divorced from everything around them. You would have to connect them with all these crossover titles before and after, and they would just sort of be sticking on the shelf without being their own standalone story. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I would say you really have to just box them back up, but they're good comics. They are worth reading. It's a good run.
It feels to me very much like if you're looking at post 2003 Hulk, which we have been in this box, it's kind of like the story is you either start at Planet Hulk and then you just keep following until you get bored because everything after that is reliant on that, or you decide that you don't want to deal with all that and you instead start at that 2008 Loeb Hulk series and you just read until you get bored. And you don't have to read both, but it just doesn't really work to jump in later. And then you either kind of have to start at Planet Hulk or you have to start with 2008 Hulk #1, and that's where you start.
Yeah, there are these really clear dividing lines, and you have to either pick one of those or then just start after Pac leaves the title and they start handing it off to new groups of writers.
Right. So at some point, I'll uncover the box that has the stuff that has Hulk before this and the Red Hulk stuff directly after this. I don't know if it's an H or R. I don't know. But this box does have 2 more books in it, which are still wrapped, and I have no knowledge of other than our very good friend Fangirl has read them, which is Jason Aaron writing Hulk. And this is a rare gap in my post-2010 Marvel knowledge because I really have read 90+% of all post-2010 Marvel, but I hated Jason Aaron at this, I hated Jason Aaron as a writer at this time, and I got it to fill the box, but I was like, screw this, I'm not going to read them. What are they? Are they good? Should I read them? What kind of a Hulk run is?
Anything like me,
which I am.
Those books will, if anything, make you hate Jason Aaron all over again. This is by the standards of Jason Aaron, and I am not the world's biggest Jason Aaron fan, but that is some bad Jason Aaron.
I turned into a moderate Jason Aaron fan.
He's gotten better, but this was before he got good in any respect.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever understood why he was writing that title. It's a short run. He hops off the title as soon as he gets an opportunity to do it. So he was clearly not feeling enthusiastic about his own work there. But it's also a run, Hulk is a character that benefits so much from his deep continuity because they've developed the psychology of Bruce Banner in so many different ways over time, and writers get some of their best material playing around with that. Jason Aaron feels like a writer who's never read a Hulk comic in his life. He knows nothing about this guy.
It could be positive, right? Because Hulk we've covered, it tends to hit the same beats. Do you have to have read Hulk comics?
Except what it allows him to do is play a lot of those same beats over again and act like nobody's ever done this before. And he's just replaying these Hulk stories and thinking that he's coming up with them in the first time. It's what if the Hulk and Banner were separate people? You mean for the 5th dozen time, Jason?
So it's not that it's just that it repeats prior beats and not well is what I'm hearing.
It's a bad run, and here's what I think absolutely is the worst knock against it. It's a bad run that I don't think ever gets mentioned again. And Jason Aaron quits the title. He gets replaced with Mark Waid. Waid makes exactly 0 references to that run at all. You could go straight from the end of Greg Pak to the beginning of Mark Waid and not miss a beat.
Which I did, and it made perfect sense. And I actually have a lot of affinity for that Mark Waid Indestructible Hulk run. It's one of those like slept on books. I think because, and we'll end after this, but Pak created such a phenomenally different kind of Hulk story, even after he was back. As you said, a lot of these are just dealing with kind of the after effects of Hulk, that to go back to a Hulk story where Banner is a scientist and he's doing sciencey things, I think just was like a turnoff. Like everybody was like, where's more of the stuff we were doing? But to me, who thought that was all okay, but it wasn't like my favorite type of story ever, the return to hard science with Bruce Banner was incredibly appealing to me. And it felt like it had been a long time since we had done Bruce Banner through a hard science lens rather than through a Hulk lens. And so I actually really liked that subsequent run.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that, because I like that run a lot as well. That's the way to shake up the status quo and do it well for the Hulk. Jason Aaron is a way to shake up the status quo and do it very, very poorly. So that's, I would say, in the interest of completism, you're probably going to want to keep that. I don't know that I'd recommend anybody else on Earth should keep that.
Yeah, and for a lot of these oversized hardcovers, as Marvel does, as they kind of come back out with like paperback recollections, especially since I still have them in the wrapper, I would probably downgrade all of these to paperback. Because I only got them in big books because they were easy to get at that point. And they were probably all super discounted, and that's why I have them off eBay. So look, we just did a whole short box, which could take up more than one of these, and there's like less than 18. I haven't done a tally, but there's 18 or less of them left. And we come out with one book. Should I put the Prelude on the shelf too? Do I have to, or can I just put this on the shelf?
I'd say go ahead and do the Prelude. I'd say put the Prelude on the shelf, put that next to it, then you got yourself a nice little standalone Hulk story.
Right, and I already have World War Hulk. And again, to my eyes, and endorsed by Zach, if you're going to put World War Hulk on the shelf, you should put this and World War Hulk on the shelf.
Absolutely. Don't just do World War Hulk. Put those together, because it's very much a story and its sequel.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming to my rescue, because I don't know what I would have said, really, on this box.
Hey, thank you for having me here and allowing me to natter on about the Hulk for 2 episodes.
Well, everybody who's watching, there are a lot of boxes like this where I haven't read anything, so I think you will see more of Zach. But if you have specific things that you want to hear Zach natter on about in the future, or you think we could have a totally different... I mean, honestly, we could just talk for 5 hours and record it, and we may try that next weekend. Right. Please leave comments below. I always want to hear what you're looking forward to, both in terms of what's in the boxes and what we're going to say. So thank you so much for watching another episode of Shelve, Store, or Sell. We are shelving 2 books, and we'll be back next time with a totally random other box. Take care.